The views and opinions expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media is strictly prohibited.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today, our panel will answer another listener email. This is from Howard in San Francisco, California. Howard asks, Kamala Harris is scheduled to be interviewed by Fox News. What are you expecting from this interview? And do you think this is a good idea? Why do you think her team is allowing her to do this? And I believe that interview is tonight, the day of our recording. That would be Wednesday, October 16th, if I am not mistaken.
Yes. And unfortunately, I will be watching the New York Mets game, so I will not be tuning in to the interview. What do I expect from this? It's Bret Baier. It all depends on what he brings to the table on this one. He can occasionally be fair and unbiased, occasionally. But he has had a tendency to waver a bit and go the Fox party line. Yeah, he's no Walter Cronkite, that's for sure. But so I guess it's going to play out the way it plays out. It's okay if he asks the really hard question. A friend of mine said to me the other day that during one of her interviews, she was asked a question about the economy, and the question was, how are you going to pay for it? And the comment was, well, she didn't answer that. And, of course, my comment to that was, if she did, it would have taken 3.5 hours, and by the time it was over and done with, nobody would have understood it anyway. This isn't the forum where those things are brought out, those nitty-gritty details are brought out. Interviews like this are a limited period of time. You have a limited period of time to ask a question, a limited period of time to give an answer, and they want to move on to the next. So if anybody's expecting great amounts of substance from any interview, either be it on Howard Stern or no matter where it is, you're not going to get that. I mean, you're going to get snippets. And that's the way these things are designed. And that's okay. Because like I say, if you could have the greatest economist on there, could spend 3.5 hours explaining it, and 90% of the population would be still going, huh? If you want to know whether or not, if they're going to talk about the economy, which I'm sure they're going to, all you have to do is look at a whole bunch of Nobel Prize-winning economists and Goldman Sachs, whose job is to make money, has come right out and said, the Harris plan for the economy is better than the Trump plan. If you're going to listen to a talking head, those are the talking heads you probably should be listening to. Is this a good idea? I guess it all depends on how well she does. I think she can hold her own against a Bret Baier. I don't think she could hold her own as much against, say, like Jesse Waters, who isn't going to give her that opportunity because he's not a journalist. He's a clown. And he's just out there to, get more clicks and say the most outrageous things that he possibly can, spout as much bullshit as he possibly can. That is his function, and he does it relatively well for the people that listen to him. So it being Bret Baier, I think it's a good idea. Why do I think that they went with this? I'm going to say because maybe they can reach a few of these Trump people. We have to remember, there is a large population of people who are still willing to vote for Trump who do not want to vote for him, but are voting against her. And it is possible that she can reach some of those to show not what Fox reports in their normal news cycle, but actually give that audience an opportunity to see and get to know her. And yeah, that could be very beneficial. It could also go completely wrong, depending on how well she does. But I hope she does well. But then again, I hope the Mets win tonight more, and we'll see how that goes.
That's funny because, I'm the same way. I'd rather I definitely want to see the Mets win. I think she could recover from this, but I'd like to see the Mets moving towards clinching this thing at home. So anyhow, First of all, we got to stop calling Fox News Fox News. It's not Fox News. It's Fox Infotainment or something like that. I like the term angertainment. It is a network that is run by, it was founded by Roger Ailes, who was the lieutenant of Lee Atwater, who was a Republican operative who first pitched the idea to Ronald Reagan. Reagan turned him down, but then George H.W. Bush went for it, and they formed what is basically the media wing of the Republican Party in concert with Rupert Murdoch, who had at that point already owned the New York Post and a bunch of English newspapers that featured Page 3 girls. The salient point here, I believe, is that Brett Baer is going to ask her questions, and I hope that she answers them very directly, because I don't think that the people who are listening to this, and there are many, and that's really the key, can handle complex answers. The answer to the question that Mark was asked before, how is she going to pay for all this, was we're going to ask wealthy people to pay their fair share. And that's a pretty simple thing that most Americans agree with. So if she just stays with that kind of answer, yeah, we're going to ask the wealthy and corporations to pay their fair share. And that will fund this. We got out of the Afghanistan war. It was an ugly ending, no doubt about it. But we now have $300 million a day that we spent there for 21 years to spend on our own people here because of that. That is a wonderful peace dividend that we can make good use of here in the United States. And nobody ever asks us to justify the spending that we do on war, except recently when it comes to Ukraine and Israel. But Brett Baer asks questions. They're going to be the same questions you've heard before. Why did you change your mind on fracking? I hope she has a better answer than she's had before. There's good reasons to greenlight fracking now. And the best one is that Putin invaded Ukraine in 2022. If he had invaded Ukraine in 2019, when she was asked that question, and the world needed more energy because Russia's energy was now being taken off the table, that would have been a good answer then. But that hadn't happened yet. And so the amount of fracking we needed to do wasn't as much as we need it now. We need it now. We don't use it here domestically. People should understand that. We export virtually all of our domestic oil to other countries. But those other countries need that. And the winter is coming, and Germany is going to need energy, and other countries in Europe are going to need energy, and the people of Pennsylvania are going to provide that energy along with the people of Texas, North Dakota, etc. And that is a great windfall for us. And we should, by all means, be taking advantage of it. His loss is our gain. And right now, Putin is selling oil at about a quarter of what a barrel is normally worth to China and to India and other countries that aren't going along with these sanctions. So my complex answer to what is, I think, a really valid question. Thank you very much for listening to us and for asking these questions. I don't think Fox is legit. I would not have done the debate on there. I would not have allowed the Sean Hannitys and Laura Ingrahams and Jesse Waters and the rest of them. I would not allow them to get at Kamala Harris. But I do think that Brett Baer asks questions, gets answers, and moves on to the next question. They're going to be tough questions. She's answered them a million times before by now because everybody is asking the same questions over and over again. And hopefully she has a better answer for the question about would you do anything different from the Biden administration? The first part of that answer is simply this. But Joe Biden and I had a lot of private conversations about policy. I'm not in a position to reveal those private conversations that we had, so I can't really answer this question. But there are going to be differences between the Harris campaign, the Harris administration and the Biden administration. And there's no doubt about that, but nothing specific comes to mind. If you didn't like the end of Afghanistan, you should talk to Mr. Trump about that because he's the one who engineered that, not Joe Biden. I don't know. Anything else, Mark, on that?
No, I totally agree with you. The only thing that I'm really sorry for is that Chris Wallace left the Fox infomercial thing, because I think he would have been really the one that would have done a great job with this interview on Fox. I saw him do an interview with Jon Stewart, and it was a great exchange. No, I totally agree with you, Scott. She can answer the questions. You're right. I would not have wanted to put up with the three clowns that you mentioned. I think Brett Baer, he has some legitimacy as far as being an interviewer, and I was just going to have to see how that plays out. Maybe I'll watch a little bit of it after the Mets-Dodgers game. Maybe. Depends on who wins.
So I have a follow, just to add to Howard's question. Do you feel it might have been a mistake for Fox Info? It's not even infotainment. Fox
Angertainment.
Angertainment, yeah. Radiotainment, to have asked her rather than it having been a mistake for her people and for her to have accepted it. Do you think it might have been a mistake for them to have given her a platform?
No. Huh. No, actually, that's an interesting question, though. But I'm going to answer very quickly. No, because the people that have drank the Kool-Aid, they're not going to change their mind at all. So I can't see I really can't see a downside. Maybe Scott can.
It could backfire in terms of assuming she's going to do well, Trump will be angry at Fox. And, and their viewership who's loyal to him will once again leave Fox and go to the other two networks that were set up as alternatives to Fox when Fox wasn't sufficiently loyal to Trump. So it's possible that was a tactical mistake on their part vis-a-vis the Trump administration and Trump fans. But that's only a given if Kamala answers questions in a long roundabout way that seem evasive or overly intellectual. That's not this audience. And hopefully her responses are direct and solid. And then Trump will have a problem with Fox, no doubt about it.
Okay, so you don't see a potential for her to sway anyone or make anyone see that she is not a horn demon or anything like that. And maybe people will say, well, I don't like Trump. I really now feel comfortable not voting for him, but I don't want to vote for her. I'm just going to stay home. And that will lose Trump votes, which in some of the swing states might be good. It won't gain her any, but it will lose him votes.
So I'm not a TV analyst, but I do know that Fox has a really, really high viewership and that they're going to have eyes on this thing. And it's important to reach those people and to do the best that you can to sway them. And so it's worth it from Kamala Harris's standpoint to try to reach voters that she wouldn't reach. Trump's got a floor. There's no doubt about that. He also seems to have a ceiling, and her job is to peel off enough people so that he doesn't hit his ceiling and keep him below that. So, he gets his, I'm going to say it's 48%, right? He has a really hard time. He's never done it to get over 50%. He's never done it. And so if she can knock down his 48 to almost 47, that's a victory for her. And there are going to be people looking at this who are not avid Trump supporters, but are Trump supporters because this is what they see on their TV, support for Trump. And so they join that club, but they're not his base. And so there will be people to peel. And in an election this close, you can get 10 people in a county in Pennsylvania and sway this election. And so going after those 10 people is certainly worthwhile. It's also, by the way, the reason that Trump is campaigning in blue states, why he's going to California, Chicago, New York. And, it's not to win those states. He has no chance of doing that, but he does have a chance of maybe pulling a couple more people his way.
And also, I would think, as far as Trump is concerned in New York and so forth, perhaps for the Senate, to try to help to shift the Senate and keep the House red as well. Howard, I do hope that we have answered your question, and thank you for the question. That was an excellent question. Any further thoughts? No?
I think we covered it.
Great. Thank you both. And thank you, as always, to all our listeners. We do hope that everyone is staying safe. Do be sure to check your voter registration and your voter status in your respective county and voting location. Be sure that you're still eligible and registered to vote. Request your ballot by mail if you are not planning on being at the polls. And thank you again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Stay safe.
So that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this week's episode, the Phoenix Research Group, an independent research consortium offering social issue solutions to NGOs and international government agencies through multidisciplinary, nonpartisan, and unbiased research. We'd also like to thank our podcast partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Podkite, who does all our analytics, iHeartRadio, where people get their music and podcasts, Apple iTunes, the largest source of music and podcasts on the internet, Spotify, the most popular source for the Nova Society. The Nova Society is available on all these and other quality platforms mentioned in our description. We'd like to thank our listeners. Without you, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a comment, a question, or would like to be a guest on the Nova Society, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. Always remember, the power of society is knowledge. So for Dr. Scott Gershwer, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Be well, and we hope to see you again next time.